Hello, my fine young artist friends, and welcome to Studio 37. This last couple weeks, I want to focus on the artwork of Bridgit Riley. She is a London born pop artist. Of course, March is Women's History Month, and unfortunately, we do not talk enough about women in this room. So, I want to highlight Bridgit Riley as we end Women's History Month, moving on into April, and look at her phenomenal op art. The art of Bridgit Riley is something that has impacted the art world as well as fashion and just culture at large. Now, believe it or not, Bridget was highly influenced by classical art and she was trained as a representational artist. To examine her work, I hope you read the article I gave you last week pertaining Bridgit Riley and the op art movement. And now I'm going to send it over to my computer so we can look at some of her work up close and personal. Please stay tuned. As promised, we're going to examine the artwork of op artist Bridgit Riley. You might be surprised as I was to learn that Bridgit Riley was trained as a classical representational artist when she was in school. That is a picture of her on the left in front of one of her most famous paintings. But let's go ahead and take a look at her early work. So in college, she was trained as a representational artist, and shortly after graduating, I think you can tell she was heavily influenced by the Impressionists like Monet and Pissarro, as well as the post-Impressionist pointillist Georges Seurat. And I think if you remember Sunday Afternoon on the Isle of the Grand Jatte, this was very much heavily influenced by the artist Georges Seurat. And there you can also see her exploring with perception. If you remember, Georges Seurat used little bitty dots of paint and let our eyes blend the paint together to make our colors. Here, Bridgit Riley is exploring with how our eyes perceive imagery. And she pushes that further and further and further, and she starts to work more and more abstractly. This is her first non-objective piece. It's called The Kiss. So she does away with color and decides to work strictly with black and white. She stays with just black and white for many years, but this is working towards the op art that we're going to examine next. I really enjoy this piece. I think it is a solid composition with a lot of movement, even though it is so minimalist. But prepare yourself, these next works are quite a bit more intense. So for a while, as I said, she worked in black and white, and those works look like this. I hope that this piece is inspiring movement, and it's kind of hard to tell what's going on and why. At least it is for me. That is one characteristic that you probably have already noticed about op art. Here is another example. Just black and white paint. The longer you look at them, the more unsettling and unnerving and harder for your eyes to perceive they become. This one's really starting to swim on me, guys. I'm going to go to the next one. Then in the late 60s, she started to incorporate gray into her work, which adds another element of optical illusion. And here's another one. So that gray adds to the sense of depth in these non-objective op art pieces. Slowly and slowly, she starts to add in color. Now, the colors she's using in this one are equiluminant. So if this were a gray and white picture, the red and blue would be about the same luminance, or they would be the same gray. She does that because it makes it harder and harder to define the edge between the red and blue paint. Which, if you look at this long enough, it starts to swim and confuses your eyes as well. And they get a little bit more and more colorful. I really enjoy this piece, but again, I don't think I could have it hanging on my wall. And finally, we have this piece right here, which is some of her most recent work. That is right. Even though she was born in the early 1930s, Bridgit Riley is still hard at work in her studio. All right, ladies and gentlemen, for your assignment, I want you to create your own piece of op art. Now, if you are deeply inspired by one of the pieces we examined today by looking at Bridgit Riley, just go for it. If you'd want more guidance, I watched a handful of op art videos to try and decide which approach would be best for me to teach you guys, and then I decided you guys should watch your own tutorial and choose to make one that you want to make. Because we're all different artists with different skills and abilities. Some of these rely heavily on using rulers, some of them not so much. So look around, shop around, find one that makes something that you want to make, and make it. If you get a chance, have fun. Enjoy spring, and if you're seeing this before spring break, have a great one. If not, enjoy spring. See you soon.